Have you ever wondered what it would feel like to witness the end of the world? Not as a story, not as a movie, but as a living, breathing reality that you see, hear, and feel with every part of your soul? Tonight, I want you to meet someone whose life changed forever in the most unlikely place, someone who crossed the border between life and death and returned with a warning so urgent it could mean survival for all of humanity. Imagine a normal woman caught between her career, family, and everyday doubts. One moment, she's walking the crowded streets of a distant land, searching for purpose. The next, everything explodes into chaos. And in those final moments, she's pulled out of her own body, catapulted into a world beyond understanding. What she saw there, what she experienced, wasn't just comfort or peace. It was a vision of terrifying destruction, 3 days of fire, darkness, and suffering, a world on the brink of annihilation. But also, she brought back a glimmer of hope and a mission that might change the fate of millions. Would you dare to listen to her story? And if you did, what would you do with her warning? Tell me in the comments. If you ever received a message from the other side, would you share it or keep it to yourself? And why? Stay with me, and let's dive deep into the most shocking near-death experience you've ever heard. My name is Nadia Alman. I'm 34 years old, and until recently, I lived in Lisbon, Portugal. If you met me on the street a year ago, you'd see a woman lost in her thoughts, sometimes staring at the sky as if searching for answers that never seemed to come. I was just like you, waking up every morning, making coffee, scrolling through my phone, always haunted by a feeling that something was missing. Maybe you know what I mean. I worked as a nurse in one of Lisbon's busiest hospitals. My days were a whirlwind of faces, emergencies, and endless paperwork. Every shift felt like a new battle, sometimes against illness, sometimes against time itself. I loved helping people, but inside, I felt empty. There were nights I would come home, wash the blood from my hands, and wonder, is this all there is? I had a small apartment overlooking the river, filled with books I rarely had time to read. My mother lived nearby. She'd often call, worrying about my long hours. I always promised her I'd rest more, but the truth is, I didn't know how to slow down. My friends envied my independence, but they didn't see the loneliness I carried inside. Relationships came and went, but I never felt truly understood, even by the people who said they loved me. Since I was a child, I had questions nobody around me wanted to answer. What happens when we die? Why do good people suffer? Does God really listen, or are we all just dust in the wind? On Sundays, I sometimes sat at the back of old churches, hoping for a sign. But most days, I simply moved through life like a shadow, helpful, polite, invisible. Then, the world began to change. News of unrest in the Middle East flashed on the TV every evening. My hospital received more refugees' frightened faces, stories of bombs, lost children, and unimaginable grief. Something inside me broke. I wanted to do more. I felt this ache, a calling I couldn't ignore. Maybe it was madness, maybe it was fate. But I decided to leave behind everything safe and familiar and volunteer on the front lines of a crisis I barely understood. Looking back, I wonder, was it destiny, or did I just need to feel alive for the first time in years? Now I want to ask you, have you ever felt a deep longing for something more, a restlessness you couldn't explain? If you could leave everything behind to follow a calling, no matter how uncertain, would you have the courage to do it? Write your answer in the comments. Your story might inspire someone else who feels lost too. Leaving Lisbon was not as simple as packing a suitcase and boarding a plane. The decision haunted me for weeks. Every time I closed my eyes, I imagined my mother's worried face, my patients needing care, my own doubts whispering, "Who do you think you are?" But the ache inside my chest only grew stronger. It was like a quiet voice urging me forward, even as fear clawed at my heart. I applied to a humanitarian organization working with war victims in the Middle East. The paperwork, the interviews, the medical checks, it all felt surreal, as if I were watching someone else's life unfold. The night before I left, I stood at my window watching the city lights flicker across the water. My suitcase was open on the bed, filled with practical clothes, first aid supplies, a tiny silver cross my grandmother gave me. I whispered a prayer I barely believed in, asking for protection, for purpose, for a sign that I wasn't making the biggest mistake of my life. My mother hugged me tightly at the airport. She said, "Promise me you'll come back." I promised, though a part of me wondered if I really would. The plane rose into the clouds, and with every mile, Lisbon faded away. My safe routines, my familiar regrets, left far below. When I landed in Amman, Jordan, the air felt different, thicker, hotter, filled with the smell of spices and distant fires. The city was alive with sounds, honking cars, children laughing, prayers drifting from mosques. I felt both out of place and strangely alive. Our group of volunteers received a briefing where we'd be working, what dangers to expect. The war zone was a day's drive away, beyond the reach of the news cameras, in a region where hope seemed as fragile as glass. Everywhere, there were warnings: stay together, never go out after dark, remember, you can't save everyone. I nodded, trying to be brave, but inside I was shaking. That first night, I barely slept. Instead, I wrote in my journal, maybe I'm searching for God, maybe I'm searching for myself. The days that followed blurred together: long shifts in crowded refugee clinics, learning new languages, faces lined with suffering and courage. I saw things no one should have to see: mothers searching for lost children, young men with old eyes, a little girl clinging to a battered doll as if it held her whole world. Sometimes I would stand outside in the burning sun, dust on my skin, and feel so small, just one person against a tidal wave of pain. But there were moments of beauty, too. Strangers sharing bread, laughter in the darkness, children drawing flowers on scraps of paper, daring to dream of something better. For the first time in my life, I felt completely present, raw, real, afraid, but needed. And yet, the fear never left me. At night, I heard distant explosions. Sometimes I wondered if tomorrow would come. I missed my mother, my city, my old life. But I also felt that, finally, I was exactly where I was meant to be, even if the world outside was falling apart. Now, I want to hear from you. Have you ever stepped into the unknown, leaving everything safe behind? Did you find what you were looking for, or something unexpected? Please share your experience in the comments. Your courage may give someone else hope who stands at the edge of their own unknown. The morning of the accident began like so many others, too hot, too bright, the air heavy with tension and possibility. I woke before dawn in a cramped shelter, the sound of distant shelling rumbling through the walls. Outside, the sun was just a red smear above the horizon, painting the world in blood and gold. My hands trembled as I splashed water on my face. I tried not to think about the dangers. Instead, I focused on my routine. Make the bed, check my supplies, pray for strength. That day, our mobile medical unit was traveling to a remote village on the border. The journey was always risky. The roads were little more than broken paths winding through barren fields and ruined buildings. We packed quickly: bandages, antibiotics, clean water, a few scraps of food. Our team was quiet, each of us lost in our own thoughts, sharing nervous glances but not words. The van bounced over potholes and rubble, each jolt rattling my bones. Through the dirty windows, I watched families walk along the road, carrying everything they owned. A little boy waved at me, his smile bright against the backdrop of war. I waved back, pressing my palm to the glass, silently promising I'd do whatever I could to help. Halfway there, we heard the siren's sharp shrill, like knives in the air. Our driver shouted, "Get down!" Before I could react, there was a blinding flash of sound so loud it tore the world apart. The van spun out of control, metal screaming against concrete. My body slammed against the door. Shards of glass filled the air. For a moment, I couldn't breathe. It felt like drowning, every sound muffled except for my own heartbeat, pounding in my ears. Time slowed down. I remember the smell of burning rubber, the taste of blood in my mouth, the cold press of fear against my skin. People were shouting, crying, praying in different languages. I reached for someone, anyone, but the world tilted and spun. Then silence, a heavy, endless silence. I was slipping away. There was no pain, only a weightlessness, as if I were floating just above my own body. I saw myself crumpled in the wreckage chair, tangled with blood, hands still clutching my grandmother's cross. My teammates were moving, screaming, but I couldn't hear them anymore. It was as if I had become invisible, a ghost watching the chaos from a distance. Colors faded, sounds became echoes. The world, once so harsh and real, began to dissolve into light. In those last moments, I thought of my mother, alone in Lisbon, waiting for a call that would never come. I thought of every patient I couldn't save, every word I never said, every prayer that seemed unanswered. And then I wondered, was this it? Was this how life ended, quietly, with nothing but regret and longing? As the darkness closed in, I felt a strange calmness, a surrender. My last thought was not of fear, but of longing for peace, just a little peace, after so much pain. And now I ask you, from the depths of my heart, have you ever faced a moment that changed everything in an instant? A second that split your life into before and after? Share your story in the comments. Sometimes sharing your moment helps others feel less alone in theirs. I always thought death would come like a thief in the night, stealing everything in a single breath, but it wasn't like that at all. When my body surrendered in that shattered van, I didn't fall into nothingness. I rose into something unspeakably vast and gentle, something so real that everything before it felt like a faded dream. At first, there was only darkness, not the kind that makes you afraid, but a deep, velvet stillness that wrapped around me like a blanket. For the first time in years, I felt no pain, no fear, no weight of worrying or regret. I felt only peace, and ancient, infinite peace, as if every cell of my being was dissolving into calm. My heartbeat, once frantic, slowed to a gentle echo, and then nothing. I existed, but not as flesh and bone. I was thought, I was memory, I was light. Slowly, that darkness brightened. A soft glow blossomed in front of me, growing wider and warmer, until I stood in a landscape made of pure radiance. It was both everywhere and nowhere, shifting, living, pulsing with colors I had never seen and could never describe. I felt as if I were being cradled by the universe itself, loved by something infinitely bigger than anything I'd ever known. I could see myself, but I was not the Nadia I remembered. My body was gone. I was a spark, a soul, a story unraveling across eternity. Images flickered through the light, memories from my life, every laughter and tear, every small kindness and mistake. It was as if time itself had been shattered and reassembled, and I could see every thread that made up the tapestry of who I had been. I saw my mother's smile, the wrinkled hands of my patients, the face of the little boy waving through the van window. I felt every emotion at once: joy, sorrow, longing, love. They were not separate, they were all part of the same endless river. I drifted and moored, feeling the boundaries between myself and the universe dissolving. There was no more loneliness, no more fear of being misunderstood or forgotten. I understood, with a clarity I never knew in life, that every moment mattered. Every act of kindness, every prayer, every whispered hope, everything was woven together in a way too beautiful for words. Then something shifted. I became aware of a presence, a shimmering awareness that moved toward me like the dawn. It was as if the light itself had a heartbeat, and it called to me, pulling me closer. I felt weightless, yet more real than ever before. My thoughts echoed in this space, and for the first time, I truly listened. I tried to speak, but I had no voice. Still, the presence heard me. I felt it answer not with words, but with a wave of love so profound it shattered every fear, every doubt I had ever carried. I realized I was not alone. I had never been alone. None of us are. We are all connected, threads in a pattern beyond our comprehension. Time ceased to exist. There was only this infinite now, and in that now, I understood everything and nothing. I glimpsed the truth of who I was, Not just a nurse, a daughter, a soul in search of meaning, but a part of something eternal. And yet, somewhere in the distance, I sensed a question, a choice, waiting for me. I wasn't sure what it was, but I knew my journey was not over. Now, I turn to you. Have you ever had a moment where you felt something greater than yourself, an inexplicable peace, a presence, a sign you couldn't ignore? Please share your experience in the comments. You never know who might need to hear that they're not alone, not even for a second. As I drifted in that boundless light, a sudden warmth wrapped around me, so tender, so powerful. It felt like the embrace of the universe itself. Then, from the glowing expanse, a figure emerged. At first, I could only see a brilliant radiance, like the sun filtered through crystal. But slowly, the shape took form, a presence so full of love and authority. I felt my soul trembling. I knew, without a doubt, who it was: Jesus, not the man from history, but a being of pure light, peace, and boundless compassion. His eyes held the weight of all the pain and hope in the world, yet there was no judgment, only acceptance and an invitation to understand. His voice was not spoken aloud, but echoed inside my mind, a melody that touched every corner of my being. You have been given a glimpse of the truth, but the path ahead is difficult. The world faces darkness, but light always endures. You must carry this message back. Do not let fear silence you. He showed me visions, scenes of devastation I cannot forget. Cities swallowed by fire, skies darkened by ash, oceans rising to claim the land. The warning was clear. 3 days of nuclear fire would soon test humanity's spirit and survival. Yet in the midst of destruction, I also saw acts of courage, sacrifice, and love that could turn the tide. Jesus' gaze then softened, and he touched my heart. A warmth spread through me, healing every wound, filling me with strength and purpose. You are not alone. You carry the light within you. Share it. I wanted to ask so many questions. Why this suffering? Why such pain? But I felt the answers would come in time. For now, I simply listened, knowing this moment was a gift and a burden. As the vision faded, I felt a pull back toward my body, a tug that grew stronger with each passing second. The light dimmed, the peace gave way to urgency. I was being sent back, tasked with a mission that would change everything. Now I want to ask you, have you ever felt a presence so powerful and loving it changed your life forever? How did it shape your beliefs or your path? Share your experience in the comments. Your story might light the way for someone lost in darkness. The moment the divine presence faded, I was plunged into a vision so vivid, so terrifying, it seared itself into my soul. It was as if I was shown the future, not just a possibility, but a warning etched in the fabric of time. I saw the world engulfed in flames. Cities I knew, some I had only heard about, were swallowed by nuclear fire. The sky turned an unnatural shade of dark orange, choking the sun's light, casting shadows of fear and despair across the land. For 3 days, the fire raged without mercy, an unrelenting storm of destruction that would shake humanity to its core. The air was thick with ash and silence. I could feel the heat on my skin, the sting of smoke in my lungs, the weight of loss pressing down like a heavy blanket. People ran, screamed, prayed. But in the heart of the chaos, I also saw small pockets of hope, neighbors helping neighbors, strangers risking everything to save lives, children clutching hands in silent promise. The vision showed me that this disaster was not punishment, but a crossroads, a test of humanity's soul, the choice to descend into darkness or rise into light. The decisions we make now, today, will echo through generations. I saw governments and leaders blinded by fear and pride, pushing the world toward the edge. I saw ordinary people waking up to the truth, their eyes opening to the fragile thread that holds us all together. I felt the urgency in the message. This was not a distant nightmare, but a reality hurtling toward us faster than we think. And amidst it all, I heard a voice, a whisper of hope. You have the power to change the course. Do not wait. Act now. Love fiercely. Pray earnestly. When the vision ended, I felt a crushing weight settle on my chest. This was no longer just my story. It was everyone's, and if we ignore it, the price will be unimaginable. Now, I turn to you with a question that burns in my heart. What would you do if you knew the world had only 3 days left before devastation? How would you live, love, and fight? Write your thoughts in the comments. Your words might ignite the spark of change in someone else. Coming back was like being torn between two worlds, one of infinite light and peace, and the other of pain, chaos, and fragility. I felt myself slipping slowly back into my battered body, but it wasn't a gentle transition. It was violent, confusing, like waking up from a dream only to find yourself trapped in a nightmare. My eyes opened, but the world was blurry and cold. The sharp scent of smoke and dust filled my nostrils. I could hear voices frantic, desperate around me, but I couldn't respond. My limbs were heavy, numb, and every breath felt like a mountain I had to climb. Pain exploded through my body, a relentless fire that matched the vision I had just left behind. My skin burned where the glass had kept me, my ribs ached from the impact, and every muscle screamed in protest. Yet, beneath the physical agony, a deeper confusion took hold. Was I really alive? Or was this some cruel limbo? I tried to move, to speak, but my body refused. Tears mixed with blood on my cheeks as I realized how close I had come to the edge. I was caught between death and life, suspended on a fragile thread. The faces of my teammates appeared above me, fear, hope, relief mingling in their eyes. They shouted my name, and for a moment, I was overwhelmed by the knowledge that I still belonged to this world, this messy, painful, beautiful place. But returning wasn't just about survival. It was about carrying a message too heavy to ignore. I knew I had been given a purpose far greater than I understood. The prophecy, the warning, the glimpse of what could be all weighed on me like a silent scream. As I lay there, struggling to breathe and to believe, I made a promise to fight for every second I was given, to share what I had seen, no matter the cost. And now I ask you, have you ever felt torn between two realities, between what you know and what you feel? How did you find your way back? Please share your experiences in the comments. Your story could be the lifeline someone else desperately needs. As I slowly recovered, every moment was a battle, not just with my bruised body, but with the weight of what I had witnessed. The world I returned to felt smaller and more fragile, as if the colors had dimmed and the noise had softened. Yet inside me, a storm raged, a fire ignited by the urgent message I carried. I tried to explain what I had seen to friends, to colleagues, to strangers, but the words felt inadequate, like whispers lost in a hurricane. Some looked at me with disbelief, others with fear. "Are you sure it wasn't just trauma?" they asked. Maybe it was a dream, but I knew what I experienced was real. Every night, the images haunted me: the 3 days of fire, the faces of suffering, the desperate hope of those few pockets of light. It was a mission now, one I could not ignore, to wake people up before it was too late. I began speaking at small gatherings, sharing my story with anyone who would listen. Social media became a platform for my warnings and my hope. The message was clear: the future is not set in stone, but the clock is ticking. We must act with compassion, with courage, with urgency. The impact was both humbling and terrifying. Some embraced the message and joined the cause. Others pushed back, calling me alarmist or crazy, but I refused to be silenced. I remembered the warmth of that divine presence, the weight of the prophecy, and the promise I made on that broken road. Every day, I felt the pull of that mission deeper. This was no longer just about me, it was about all of us. About the choices humanity makes in the next hours, days, and years. Now, I ask you, if you had a message that could change the world, would you have the courage to share it? What holds you back from speaking your truth? Write your thoughts in the comments below. Your voice matters more than you know. As my story spread, I began to see a pattern, a global awakening sparked by the harsh truth I brought back. This wasn't just about one country or one people. The warning of 3 days of nuclear fire wasn't confined to borders. It was a call to all humanity. I watched news reports of escalating tensions and checked arms races and leaders blinded by pride and fear. The threat loomed larger every day, and yet, so many turned away, choosing comfort over confrontation. It felt like the whole world was teetering on the edge, caught between destruction and redemption. But amidst the darkness, I saw sparks of light movements rising, voices uniting, people choosing peace over war, love over hate. The message I carried was no longer mine alone. It was a shared responsibility, a plea for collective awakening. I realized my journey from a restless nurse in Lisbon to a near-death traveler with a mission was part of something bigger. A global call to action, a spiritual reckoning. This prophecy, terrifying as it is, also holds hope. Because even in the darkest fires, light can emerge. And the power to change everything lies in our hands, in our hearts. Now, I ask you, from the depths of my soul, what will you do with this warning? How will you choose to live today, knowing the fragility of our world? Please share your reflections in the comments. Let's start a conversation that could save us all. Since the moment I opened my eyes back in that dusty field, I knew my journey wasn't just about survival, it was about delivering a message that transcended borders, cultures, and beliefs. The vision I brought back wasn't a personal revelation. It was a global warning, a prophecy that concerns every human being on this fragile planet. I began to watch the world through new eyes that had seen beyond the veil of death and back. I saw the creeping shadows of conflict stretching across continents. News headlines screamed of escalating tensions between nuclear powers, leaders making decisions that could ignite unimaginable destruction. The threat was no longer theoretical, it was real, imminent, and terrifyingly close. Yet, despite the urgency, so many turned away. The world seemed paralyzed by fear, denial, and apathy. It was easier to ignore the signs than to face the terrifying possibility of what might come. I understood that fear all too well, it had nearly claimed me too. But now, I carried a flame that refused to be extinguished. In my heart, I carried the image of those 3 days of nuclear fire, a time when skies would burn with a firestorm, when darkness would choke the sun's light, and when humanity's very soul would be tested. It is a trial unlike any we have faced before. But the prophecy wasn't just about destruction. It was a call to action, a call to wake up. I saw moments of courage flickering through the chaos, neighbors helping neighbors, activists rising to demand peace, strangers risking everything for the sake of humanity. These sparks of light can grow into a wildfire of hope, but only if we choose to act. This is a pivotal moment in human history. We stand at a crossroads where the decisions of leaders and citizens alike will determine the fate of generations to come. Pride, greed, and fear push us toward the edge, but love, unity, and courage can pull us back. I also realized something profound. The light I was shown, the love I felt in that other realm, exists in all of us. It's a well of strength waiting to be tapped. The choice is ours to let that light guide us or to let darkness consume us. I am no prophet. I am just a woman who walked through death and back, charged with a mission too great to ignore. But this is not my fight alone. It belongs to every one of us. The power to change the course of history lies in our hands, in the way we choose to live, to love, to resist hatred and despair. So I ask you, deeply and urgently, what will you do with this warning? Will you close your eyes, hope it's not true, and carry on as if nothing is at stake? Or will you open your heart, raise your voice, and stand up for the future of our world? Every small act of kindness, every effort for peace, every moment of courage matters now more than ever. The time for complacency is over. Please write your reflections in the comments below. What does this message awaken in you? How will you choose to face this unprecedented moment? Your voice could be the light someone else needs in the darkness. After everything I've seen, felt, and been through, I stand before you not just as Nadia, the nurse, the traveler, or the survivor, but as a messenger carrying the weight of a world on the brink. The truth I bring is heavy, but it is not without hope. Because even in the darkest moments, even in the face of unimaginable destruction, there is always a choice. And that choice is yours and mine. We live in a world fractured by conflict, fear, and uncertainty. But it is also a world capable of immense kindness, courage, and transformation. The 3 days of nuclear fire I was shown are not inevitable, they are a warning. A crossroads, a plea for humanity to wake up, to remember what unites us rather than what divides us. I have felt the peace beyond life, the light beyond darkness. I have seen how fragile yet powerful our existence is, and I know this. We are not powerless. Each of us holds a spark inside, a spark that can ignite change, heal wounds, and build bridges where walls once stood. This is why I am here, speaking to you now. Because silence is not an option. Complacency is a luxury we cannot afford. The world needs voices, your voice, to rise above fear and despair, to speak truth, to act with love, and to carry the light into the shadows. So I ask you, from the deepest part of my heart, will you be part of the change? Will you stand with me and countless others who refuse to let hope die? If you believe in a future where humanity survives and thrives, then the time to act is now, not tomorrow, not next week, now. Let us honor those we have lost, the fragile beauty of life, and the promise of tomorrow by choosing peace, kindness, and courage every single day. Share this message, start conversations, look around you and offer help. Pray or meditate for strength and guidance. Whatever your path, walk it with purpose and heart. I want to hear from you. What is your commitment today? How will you keep hope alive in your life and community? Please write your promise in the comments below. Your words can inspire a movement, and if this story touched you, if it stirred something deep within, please subscribe to this channel. Join a community that dares to face hard truths and chooses hope anyway. Together, we can be the light in the darkness. Thank you for listening. Thank you for caring. And thank you for being here. As I bring this story to a close, I want you to pause for a moment and really feel what it means that a life was almost lost, a soul journeyed beyond this world, and returned with a message so urgent it cannot be ignored. We stand at a precipice. The choice before us is stark and clear. Will we allow fear, pride, and division to push us toward the abyss? Or will we rise together to embrace compassion, unity, and courage? The 3 days of nuclear fire I saw are not a distant nightmare. They are a looming possibility. But within that terrifying vision, there is an even stronger truth. Humanity has the power to change its course. I know the darkness feels overwhelming. The news cycles bombard us with hopelessness. It's easy to feel small, powerless, like one voice can't make a difference. But that is the greatest lie we must overcome. Every choice, every action, every word of kindness adds to a ripple that can become a wave. Imagine a world where people choose dialogue over destruction, empathy over enmity, love over hate. Imagine communities bound not by fear, but by shared hope and determination. This future is not beyond reach. It begins with you and me, here and now. This story, my story, is a call, not just to watch, but to act, to awaken, to hold each other accountable for the world we want to leave behind, to recognize that our time is precious, our connections sacred, and our potential limitless. So I ask again, what will you do with this knowledge? With this warning, with this hope, will you speak out? Will you stand up? Will you carry the light forward, no matter how dark it gets? I invite you to join this journey not as a bystander, but as a beacon. Share your thoughts below. Share this message with those who need to hear it. And if you haven't already, subscribe to this channel to become part of a community that chooses courage, truth, and love. Together, we can face the darkness and ignite a new dawn. Thank you for being here. Thank you for listening. And most of all, thank you for choosing hope.